Class is in session. This is the Draft Seminar Rookie Profile Series hosted by Matt Hicks, the FF Educator, and I am joined, as always, by John Laub, the Gridiron Scholar. This is the James Cook Fantasy Football Rookie Profile episode. Before we jump into today's episode, I want to make sure folks know that they could catch the entire Rookie Profile Draft Seminar Rookie Profile Series on the Rookie Big Board podcast channel, the NFL Draft Bible Podcast Network, as well as the Rookie Big Board YouTube channel. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you let us know in the comments how you feel about James Cook, the running back out of Georgia. You can find more of John's work at footballdiehards.com, and you can find all of my work, including the 2022 Rookie Big Board rankings and the newly announced 2022 Rookie Guide at patreon.com/the FF Educator. John, James Cook, the running back / wide receiver potentially out of Georgia, seems to be the hotness right now in the pre-NFL draft buildup. Let's get into him.
I really wanted to open up with the fact that he's Dalvin's younger brother, but I know that would drive you crazy. So I'm going to skip.
Is he John? I haven't heard.
So I'm going to skip the Dalvin's younger brother. And I remember when he was being recruited, in high school, if you followed 247 Sports, ESPN, Rivals. And, he was the younger brother of Dalvin. And it was fascinating where he would go, in my opinion. He ends up at Georgia. He doesn't go to Florida State like his brother. He ends up going north and west to the University of Georgia. At the time, I was like, that's an interesting choice, only because Georgia is always loaded in the backfield, right, Matt? They have so much talent in the backfield. Where is James Cook going to fall in the rotation, and is he the best one there? Then I believe it was the next year they brought in Zamir White, and we know that James pretty much was the pass catching back and the Lightning, and James White was the Thunder. I watched him a little bit this year, but what really caught my eye was in the semifinal game against Michigan. Matt, he was terrific in that game, and I think he had like a 67-yard touchdown reception down the right sideline. He ended up with 112 receiving yards in that game. And right then I was like, all right, he's an NFL level top shelf pass catcher. There's no question in my mind about that. He started just 6 games in 4 years for the Bulldogs, Matt. And as I mentioned, he was basically second on the depth chart. And he became the third down pass catching back, sometimes rotational back. They blew people out, and James Cook got some carries in there. Last year, he posted career numbers across the board, Matt. 728 rushing yards, 6.4 yards per carry, 7 rushing touchdowns, and now we get into his versatility and what a weapon he'll be in the NFL. 27 catches, 284 yards, and 4 receiving touchdowns. So this young man had a very nice season in 2021. He only had 1 fumble in 4 seasons, Matt, at Georgia. But then there are some signs that are kind of maybe a little red flag. He only had 12 carries in a game once. That's his career high. And twice he had 104 yards rushing. So he only surpassed the 100-yard mark twice. You go back in high school, I don't think he was as decorated coming out as his older brother, but he still was a 4-star recruit from Miami. He was the top-ranked all-purpose running back in the state and number 141 overall player by 24/7 Sports. Matt, what's your film study say of James Cook?
Really interesting back, John. It does, really the foundation here for Cook is pass catching. I think in going into James Cook's film, it's interesting because it's a little bit limited relatively, right? Because you just mentioned it. We're only seeing so many snaps. And he doesn't do anything bad, but he doesn't do anything amazing. And that's always a tricky balance to strike, especially in fantasy football. But he is a good pass catcher, John. He's got soft hands. He pulls in off-target passes. He's really reliable in the flat. And you could see him, easily contributing to an NFL passing attack. He did at his pro day run wide receiver drills as well as running back drills. And I think for some folks, they're hoping that James Cook could be kind of in a similar mold to Antonio Gibson, kind of this hybrid player that finds a way to get volume in one spot or the other. He's a fast player, John. He's certainly not the fastest player on the field, but he is quick and he has great straight line acceleration. He can beat SEC linebackers to the edge, which is a really good translation point when you're talking about fantasy football success. He has some shake to his game. He's not overly elusive, but he can shake defenders, especially in tighter space. And when you look at his vision here, that's probably the one downside here. It's not the worst, but at times he can be too patient. He can get caught behind the line of scrimmage. And, behind the Georgia offensive line, you want to see players able to kind of hit those holes because that offensive line is opening up some nice holes there. So, there's a little bit of, maybe that's just lack of experience, not getting as many snaps and being more comfortable working in open space. So James Cook, we'll get into it a little bit more here, but he has high upside, but maybe a little bit more risk than some of the other rookie profiles that we've discussed. Now, John, let's dig into what numbers we do have a little bit more.
The first thing, he just comes in under that 200-pound threshold, Matt. 5'11", 199. Would love to have seen him be a 205 or greater, but he's not in the Kyren Williams size. So 190, 191 is okay. Also, he is going to get the SEC bump as well as the Georgia Bulldog bump as a running back. I do believe when you mix in all these running backs from everyone's number 5 ranked to 15, James Cook is in that kind of bucket of players. Well, if you're an NFL scout and GM, you're going to highly value the program and the conference that he played at, Matt. I would not be surprised if he goes off in the 3rd round. The reason I say that, you look at his key numbers, Matt, and he's not going to pop off the page, really. 1,503 yards rushing in 4 seasons, not overly impressive. 6.5 yards per carry is nice. But limited carries, right? Smaller sample size. This wasn't Jonathan Taylor, Breece Hall running the ball 250 times a season. I do like the 67 receptions. And why I like that even more, Matt, we kind of alluded to it on our Zamir White video. The Bulldogs are a Neanderthal offense. So 67 receptions for a pass catcher in Georgia is a pretty good number. 20 career touchdowns. And then when you put him in the model, yards from scrimmage, 1,012 this year. Nothing spectacular, but nice. And scrimmage yards dominator is only 15% because he had Zamir White, and they had other backs they rotated in there. Matt, I do believe he'll be a 3rd-round pick. What should fantasy footballers know about James Cook?
John, I have him just slightly outside of that range. I have him as an early day 3 selection, but I'm looking at round 4 for James Cook. And here's the bottom line. He certainly has the pedigree and I think the skill set to go day 2. But I just wonder in terms of what he's bringing to an NFL team, if there's just going to be a limited number of teams, really honed in on him, right? I could see some teams being very excited about him and some teams just not seeing that skill set as necessary to be added to their roster. So smaller pool, but definitely still the talent. In terms of fantasy football, I've been projected as a flex filler, which for the running back position means he's going to hang around running back 3 status over the course of his early career, potentially hitting running back 2 weeks in there. It's really going to come down to fit. Is he going to be in an NFL offense that targets the pass a lot, that needs that running back to be out there? James Cook, I think, is going to be hindered by the fact that he most likely is not ever going to be the back in a backfield to get 50 to 60% of the total volume. I think he's always going to kind of be a complementary piece. So hopefully he's with a high-octane offense so we can still project some good volume for him. I think he's going to end up a late round 2 ADP for rookie drafts because folks are excited about James Cook, and for good reasons. There's a lot of upside here. And as we mentioned here, we have some name recognition. We have some program recognition, right? We've seen good running backs come out of Georgia. And I really think the Antonio Gibson effect is real, John. I think folks are going to look back, they see a little bit of precedent, and they're going to push up his ADP maybe a little bit more than they should. If he was a mid to late third round selection, that's where I'm interested in him. So I think I'm going to have a relatively low personal exposure to him. I don't knock anybody who is going to be in on James Cook because there's certainly a lot of appeal there. And that tier of running backs is wide open, right? You can make an argument for 7 or 8 guys to be in that, second tier of running backs. So pick your favorite. And if it's James Cook, by all means, go for it. But I'm going to opt for some of the other running backs that we've broken down for rookie profiles. But everybody has their price, John. And if he slides into that third round, I will buy. Just like I hope, John, everybody is buying into the entire rookie profile series. You're going to want to make sure you're subscribed, whether you're listening or whether you're watching, because, John, we still got a lot more content to go. And if you are listening to this as the first profile, your first week listening to the profiles, you got about 7 weeks of information to track back on. You're going to want to make sure you check out the entire rookie profile series. As always, we appreciate